This movement, to a large extent, is achieved through vehicular means. Safe delivery of goods is the prayer of every producer. Likewise, safe arrival is the prayer of every passenger. Where visibility is hampered, then safe arrival can no longer be guaranteed, which explains the need for cars to have functional wipers, especially during the rainy season. Wipers wipe out moist and stains from the windscreen of all vehicles in order to give the driver sufficient visibility in the event of rainfall while on the road and to prevent veering off or colliding with other cars. It is important to not only have functional wipers but also ensure that our wipers are effective. Check your wiper blades today. Wipers constitute the basic minimum safety on the road.
Issues in the sports sector remain one of the most debated among Nigerians due to the passion, followership, government involvement, impact on Nigeria's external image and our national life in the sports parliament. The NTA offers Nigerians deep views on issues with experts in the sports sector, offering in-depth analysis, hindsight, insight and foresight towards elevating Nigerian sports to the zenith on the floor of the sports parliament. Sports Parliament.
Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Political ideology is that set of ethical ideals, principles, doctrines, myths, or symbols of a social movement, institution, class, or large group that explains how society should work and offers some political and cultural blueprint for a certain social order. Now, the build-up of events ahead of the 2023 general elections, the narrow gap needed to be closed by political parties is defined by the ideology they stand for. Tonight, ideology will dominate our discussion on what distinguishes parties and how they should function in line with democratic tenets. But first, let's get to see this report put together by political correspondent Timothy Yusuf.
When you win on the manifesto of a political party, when people vote for you because they believe that you are going to promote equal opportunity and social justice for all, and then you defect with that mandate, then you are not being ideological. But when you win an election on that mandate, you should retain that mandate and work for the purpose of their manifesto. Because the reason why the Nigerian people elect you is because there's a manifesto which you promoted to them at the grassroots ab initio. So ideological nature of people could be seen from the fact that when they campaign, canvass for vote based on one political party and move to another political party, they have abused their ideological stand by not standing on the party which they were elected to continue to promote the interest of the general public.
Even though political ideology is the first and most importantly a key element to any political party, findings over the years show that the Nigerian political party system seems to be without clear ideological commitments. Political players note that the situation is predicated upon the relegation of politics of issues to the background.
Before you define the ideology, you have to take into consideration the underlying conditions. What is the economic condition of the country? How independent can people really make judgment without being induced? Are they poor? Do you have prevalent poverty? I mean, pervasive ignorance and things like that?
With the observation that personal interest is being placed as priority, lack of political ideology is also believed to have impacted negatively on the nation's internal party democracy.
It affects everything. It affects everything. Because it's not about who is capable of doing this. It's not about who will represent the people, but it's about who can pay. Nobody look at what you have to contribute to the system. So it's really a serious problem.
What then is the way forward?
The country is supreme. You hear in some places people say our party is supreme. How can your party be more supreme than the country? The interest of the country is supreme. You must put the interest of the country first and foremost than the interest of your political party.
Political parties, however, being enjoined to make operational their party ideologies in order to make political leaders accountable to public offices, especially in the face of seemingly negative effects on the nation's public service. Timothy Yusuf, NT News.
And that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests. We'd like to welcome to this program Professor Joy Izilu, international human rights lawyer, professor of law at the University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, and a former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Trafficking. Prof, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you and welcome viewers.
Right. Let me also welcome to this program Nasser Isa Abubakar, the former executive director of Westex Group PLC, a founding member of APC, and also a member of the Board of Trustees of the APC. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Cyril.
All right.
Thank you, viewers.
All right, we're also joined tonight by Dr. Tunji Abayomi, his constitutional lawyer, pro-chancellor and chairman of the governing council of Adekunle Ajasin University, Akungba Akuku, in Ondo State. He joins us via Zoom from Lagos. Dr. Abayomi, good to see you again.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Now, every Tuesday, we acquaint you with the procedure of the program, and at some point in time, you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. When that time comes, we'll refresh your memory. But for now, let's start off tonight talking about party ideology and governance. And easily, we like to situate what party ideology really is. Do we find it in the political landscape of Nigeria? What are we seeing with the parties? Let's turn to Professor Izilu and ask about this.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think on paper is captured in parties, constitutions, and manifestos. But then when you think of the practical application of it and what party ideology means in terms of, coherent set of views on politics and the role of government, even the role of political parties in the government, you will see that in their papers, and I've studied parties' constitutions in the past, that they are beautifully laid out, even though the clear, differential or distinguishing one party from the other in terms of what they roll out as their aims and objectives, and in the manifestos is not very, clear. But it definitely, in terms of practicalization of it, operationalization of it, I don't even think the political parties' membership and then the actors and gladiators are even thinking in ideological terms, not to talk of even Nigerians. I don't think for Nigerians, when they want to vote for parties, they think in terms of ideology, that you will see the major players, whether you're thinking of liberals or conservatives or a little bit to the left, to the right, or on the middle. All of those things don't matter. And I think even for the upcoming election, it's going to be a lot around personalities as well. And we're coming to that. In the past, actually, interestingly, if you look at the history of Nigeria, there was a time this party ideology was very clear. In the time of Zigzawo, Balarabe Musa, it was very clear. But now it's so nebulous, it's not crystallized. We're definitely not there. It's still growing. And I hope we get there, because it's important that also what you have in the books, that it connects to the people, and what that set of the ideals upon which parties are founded are well grounded, so that it can resonate with the people, and people can hold them accountable based on those.
Yeah, but if you say, and we agree, that we saw something of ideology in the past, what would have happened? Was it the military intervention that took away thoughts of ideology?
That's interestingly part of it. And then again, when you study the party constitutions, and especially at the onset of transition in 1999, many of them referred to the military rule, and then how that has fragmented the society, the democracy, rule of law, and now that they have to build based on this, and we see a common theme running through in terms of unity of the country, equity, fairness, social justice, all of those things. The principles, out there. Yeah.
Let's go to, if you like, one of the players. And you've heard people say in this country that there's hardly anything to choose between the parties. That, if you've seen one, you've seen the others. But would you say that any of the parties, as we have them now, demonstrates or shows some ideology?
Unfortunately, no. Zero. And like the professor has said, we've seen some semblance of, because I would say semblance of ideological inclination, maybe in the First Republic, and even during the time of Babangida being a military head of state, he tried, to bring this, ideological thing into the party politics by, a little to the left, a little to the right, NRC and SDP. But fundamentally, I think we have to go back a little bit, in history. And that is to say, ideologies are not necessarily meant for political parties. Ideologies are meant for countries. It is countries that adopt certain ideologies that political parties now rally around, either in agreement with such ideologies or in difference with such ideologies. And we see that happening precisely in democracies that are defined according to their ideological leanings. And we have two divides today in the world, either capitalism or socialism. And there are so many in-betweens. And so parties take their positions from that standpoint. And maybe from the way we got our independence, which is very, very different from the practical, normal way people fight for independence in other climes. So that informs the kind of ideology that they adopt, and maybe the ruling party itself at that time may adopt that as a majority, but then there will be some splinter groups here and there. And as time goes by, as they engage in the process of governance, now people will begin to see clearly what these ideologies have to offer in terms of, because ideologies have to do with socio-economic basis, and of society and how society is governed. And, this will define, the well-being of society. It will define, the economic structures in society. That means, the means of production in the society, goods and services. And if the people's demands or needs are being met by such, parties that follow certain, ideologies, then it becomes like a national ideology. But unfortunately, we didn't have that experience. So maybe we just adopted, the British system. And so there are a little bit of some radical groups, maybe the Middle Belt, UNBC, NEBU, Borno Progressive Union. That's in the First Republic.
Right.
And in the Second Republic, you have, groups like the Action Group, PRP, stuff like that. And from there is no semblance of, ideological leaning in the way we are going, except, like I said, when, Babangida came and brought this a little to the left, a little to the right. But, that is why today we have this confusion. When you see one, you see all, unfortunately.
All right, let's go over to Lagos. So, Tunji Abayomi, you heard the opening comments of the discussants here. And the question, again, we put to you is, does it seem like the parties as they're constituted now have any ideological leanings or have any ideology that you say, look, this is distinct. Party A is distinct from Party B. Party C stands for this.
Well, it's important to appreciate that even within social science, the concept of ideology is perceived as very elusive with undefined contours. But I think it's best to view it from the standpoint of guiding principles that direct or guide performance in politics. In my view, if we look at the present firmament, political firmament, evolving, it appears as if we have differentiating guiding principles. If we take the three major actors representing their political parties, certainly the distinctions are clear. Now let us look, for example, Labour Party. Peter Obi is of the view that he isn't going to be participating in politics of monetization. I think he has established that principle, and because of that, he left PDP. And I believe most of the people that are following him also share that principle. Now we come to APC. The position of APC is that the candidate of the party must come from the south, which is a principle they obviously adopted, established, and supported. In this regard, they ensured that a larger number of delegates voted. Obviously, it means that most of the delegates of APC also have accepted that principle. On the other hand, if we go to PDP, what we find is that they are not limiting the choice of their candidate to any particular area, region, or zone. It's open, so anybody can become a candidate. So to the extent that these are diverse principles, differential principles guiding different political parties, we could say that we have ideological leaning principles that guide various political parties. I think for a common understanding, this perhaps will be the best way to look at the concept of ideologies, principles guiding a political party to achieve the objective it has set for itself.
This principle, or the principles you just talked about, they change depending on the circumstances. But we're looking at something where you say this party stands for this. All right? Not just the convenience of elections. These principles you talked about are conveniences for, elections. Beyond elections, what are the parties teaching? This is the issue that most Nigerians are asking. And that's why I'll put an example to you. I'll give you an example. And so let's ask what you think about it. I spoke to a politician who had left one party for the other and asked why he moved on. And he said, look, forget about ideology. It's what my people say. My people say they're not pleased with Party A, and Party A is not doing what they want them to do. So we want you to go to Party B. We think that you will do better in Party B. So it's not about what Party A or Party B stands for. How do you respond to that?
My view, once you get elected into office, the concept of party ideology takes a new turn and it becomes personal ideology of the political performer. Obviously, if you take, for example, you elect a president, the entire national constituency elects him to govern us. I think by our votes, we are saying as he deems fit in our best interest. I believe he now sets the tone within, I may emphasize, the principles established by the Constitution. When you look at our Constitution, the principles of state are established: anti-corruption, freedom of people, non-dominance by any particular group, and so on and so forth. Those are general principles, but the operationalization of those principles, the methods of actually ensuring that we reach the plateau of the expectation of the people, so obviously the prerogative of the leader. So when we are talking of ideology, it's not just all political. To a certain extent, the personal ideology of the leader is crucial. I mean, for example, you could decide how you want the civil service to be run, your own vision, or you can decide, for example, the nature of the principles of economy. Do you want to, for example, stick to strict capitalism, or you want to go to socialism, or a mixture? I think that a lot of focus will now be our preoccupation when once a leader is established. I believe that after election, what?
Okay, go ahead.
Becomes the guiding angel of his government.
A term you use, a personal ideology, and ask if it amounts to the same thing as a politician who seeks re-election and does not secure the ticket of his party, and this runs counter to his personal ideology because he wants to remain in office, and so he leaves for another party. And we've seen this happen. People have moved sometimes 3-4 parties. Some want to contest certain positions, and if they can't get it in one party, they move on and they keep moving until they get one. And once they do not secure that election, the next time around they're in another party. Is that part of the personal ideology?
No, I think we have to be very clear here. Definitely personality can influence ideologies, of course, and even political parties, or shape it in a way, but here and the scenario that has been painted and what we really see with Nigeria, where people just move easily from one party to the other because it's not ideologically driven, is the fact that this issue of personality and quest for power is different because it's not founded on any ideology. It's not because, again, you have to take it back to the Constitution and manifestos. And I believe this is a collective thing, not an individual thing. When you talk about political parties ideology, because Constitution is quite clear on this. It talks about, I think section 224 says that the programs and aims and objectives of political parties must be found, they shall be in compliance with the fundamental objectives and directive of state policies, the state policy, which is in chapter 2 of the Constitution. So it shouldn't be. And when you look at that chapter 2, you will find a catalog of things on political, social objective, economic objective of the country, the foreign policy, the national ethics, the educational objectives. Those are things that they want the political parties. The ideology based on equity, a free society. Yes, also like my colleague here said at the beginning, countries can have ideology that can also help shape different political parties, ideally, because like a communist party of China, for example, and then the socialist era, and now you have the American brand of liberal, conservative, same with UK, and then you still find tilting towards socialism in most European countries. So it is different. So we can never substitute or confuse political ideology with this personality quest and an individual quest for power and also trying to influence. Definitely individuals and personalities and leadership do have influence. And if, like, think of those kind of Pan-Africanists, those people with those principles that were driving the countries, and they fought the independence based on that, and the countries imbibed that, they moved towards that. But we still need the political ideology, and like I said, on paper, here what we have is a gulf between what is in the documents of the parties, which is even though the document, the Constitution and the manifestos, there they've articulated in fact, from their preamble, from their vision, you can see where they are headed and what their analysis are and the principles that they espouse. Even though, because of course maybe there are too many parties, you can see some of them, a lot of similarities in them, and not really sharp distinction in terms of the pursuit, and then also gaps in terms of things that doesn't really also show understanding and appreciation of really what the people need. So these are things that are work in the progress. That's why I think it's growing, but we'll ask ourselves again, how come in the past we had this and why don't we have it? Does it still matter, or does it matter in Nigeria politics of today? We have to know, because it comes to average Nigeria, we say, please give me my basic needs. Right. And my basic needs should be my right to shelter, food, water, power, livelihood, sustainability. Just anybody that can give me that, that's where I go. That's where I be headed. Stomach infrastructure,
Right. So along those lines, is it a surprise to you that even when people have been elected into office, they defect to other parties, and there's no principle about stepping down, because you're saying that the party that brought you to power is no longer what you want to stay with, and yet you can move to another party which only a night before you had run down as not being the right party. Is that what explains it?
Well, Cyril, so many issues have come up, and I'm glad Professor here has addressed so many of those issues that Professor or Dr. Abayomi has raised about personalizing ideology. And that's precisely where the problem comes. Because as individuals, we differ. And, when you use subjective criteria to, analyze any issue or, use it as a basis of analyzing it becomes a problem, because I'm different. I have some of my weaknesses in certain areas, and you have your strength in those areas, and so on and so forth. And that is why it is necessary to have a uniform formula that everybody will rally around it. And even if we all have these weaknesses, and people are bound, that's why in some of these democracies they will say center right, center left, that kind of thing, because some people's ideas are more inclined towards the left, some incline more towards the right, some are centrist, and so on. But if you allow people, or you say because you believe everybody having going through the motions of politics and so on and so forth, and he becomes a leader, so we entrust him with defining what I think it is very, very wrong. And we have seen that, because not only the lower level people, even the top brass of the high echelon in the political circle, they have moved from one party to another so many times. And these are people that you can call seasoned politicians, maybe seasoned administrators, and so on and so forth. So the thing is, when you leave it to personal idiosyncrasies of individuals, it becomes a problem. But if you have a rallying point and say, this is what we believe in, and everybody can now
So this is where the challenge comes from, because what it says is that there's no difference. You could either be in one party or the other. It's not about what the parties are. And so people are asking, what would be the point of the build-up towards 2023? Why would you say then that don't go for party A, go for party B? It's not about the parties, it's about the individual. So,
precisely. Well, you see, unfortunately, the political will by those in power to be able to entrench certain ethics politically that will guide political conduct right from internal democracy within their parties, it has already been completely eroded. And, some of these leaders will be sitting at a party congress or convention, and so many malpractices will be going on, and they will look the other way because probably it is their candidates that are there, but not knowing that it is these people, when they get elected, because they did not come through the right process, when they come into governance, even if they are laid down rules and regulations of doing things, they will try to bypass them. And by the time you have such people, you cannot expect good governance. And they cannot be people who can trust to build the kind of democracy that we want. And that is why today, unfortunately in Nigeria, I would say we have a civilian administration, a civilian rule rather than democracy, because democracy does not just entail going out to campaign and vote. It also means to deliver goods to these people. And people look back today in Nigeria with nostalgia, and all other societies are looking forward, but unfortunately some of our people, most of our people are looking backwards. Like in so many years it used to be like this, it used to be like that. So we still have to summon that political courage as the political elite, to come out and fashion and agree on what we should do. All these conferences that were being serially held by various administrations, except of course the Buhari administration, they have refused to address this particular issue, and this is exactly the crux of the matter.
Okay. Well, we have a couple of reports in addition to the studio discussion. We'll start up by taking the first of those reports now. This one is coming from Lagos by Adiola Komiakiri.
Democracies, political parties are formed and have their members drawn based on certain ideologies. The experience in Nigeria, especially during the Second Republic, was not different, with some political parties tilting towards democratic socialism tendencies, while some others were based on social justice and nationalism.
Anybody who was around in the Second Republic will remember the UPN, Unity Party of Nigeria then. and they have this policy of free education, free healthcare.
And on that basis, you could associate this party with a progressive ideology, with a social democratic ideology.
These ideologies, which represent the core values and brand of the political parties, are often captured in the party manifestos and are expected to cater to the needs of our citizens and promote social change. A lot appears to be different now, as many political parties no longer promote ideologies nor adhere to the manifestos, which are supposed to be the bond with the electorate.
We cannot afford a democracy in which political parties, as they are today, are mere platforms for seeking personal political ambition. And when one platform doesn't give it to you, you go to the next platform. It should not be like that.
But most of these pro-poor programs and policies are not enshrined in the agenda. That even in capitalist states, they try to employ some welfare systems. If you look at Canada, if you look at Britain, if you look at America and all whatnot, because that is the only way to reduce poverty and inequality.
As a democracy, what is the impact of this on Nigeria's democratic culture?
Democracy will become rooted. Parties will now be compelled to fulfill a set of promises that they made, namely their manifesto, which they drew up from their ideology.
Nigeria's quest for true democracy would be realized when accountable governance, which usually stems from parties' ideology and manifesto, is embraced by all political parties. Nigerians are hopeful that leadership based on character and determination to provide good governance and national unity would soon be the order of the day in the country.
All right, Dr. Abayomi, you watched that report. Parties are turned into just vehicles for actualizing personal agenda. One wants power. It's just a step to acquiring power. It doesn't really matter if there's nothing you put in at the end of it. It's just to get the power and perhaps decide what to do with the power later on. Should it be so?
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that principle. I think it's the other way around. Individuals becoming vehicles to achieve party objectives. But I think it's essential to appreciate, even looking at the report you just showed us, that ideology, the discussion, principle, ideology is better sharpened and more defined in means rather than the end. For example, people take Nigeria, virtually every political party agrees with the principle that is established by the Constitution, that our people must be educated. The question now is that how do you educate the people? This is where the difference and the distinction emerges. Some would say that we should give the people free education from the primary schools to university, whereas a political party might say, no, this is an impossibility, it's a mere dream, a mere wish, and therefore we are going to at least demand some payments and so on and so forth. And so I think the concept of ideology within the political firmament is, in my view, more defined in means. If you take the economy, the same applies. So what I think we really should focus on as a people in a developing nation is the means to realize the objectives. These objectives are general and understandable, defined with clear contours, whether through the Constitution or the manifesto of parties. I think the greater problem for us is the means to get to those objectives. And that is why I speak about a more personal commitment, or personal definition in pushing the agenda, political agenda, when a person gets up. For example, we look at a simple situation. The agenda of the present government is anti-corruption. The president, when he came into power, I was one of the people that spent much of my time in campaigning, because as at 2015, my view is that there were only two issues that confronted our nation, and that is security and corruption. And I believe that the president towers above any other competitor. But under that same government, we read that, for example, the accountant general is facing an 80 billion naira, fraud. Whether it is true or not, well, is an issue now. So the means by which we achieve the principles, the objectives, or you might say, political or something, is really the more undefined problem in a developing country.
All right, Dr. Abayomi, let's look at it from another angle, and how this impacts governance, good governance. Because you have, without mentioning names, you've seen, as was mentioned here, people who have held very high office, political office, crisscrossing in one legislative year session. They're in one party, the next they're in another party, and you wonder, what are those things? Are we saying that the parties all had the same principles? And so, if that's the case, why not collapse them?
In my view, same principle largely, but not the same path to achieve those principles. It's just like the African market. What do you do in there? You either buy or you sell. That's the end. In the same means, in the same way, in a state, the end that is sought is the happiness of the people. How do you achieve those happiness? There are issues that are already defined, in my view. Economy, education, foreign policy that the professor mentioned, and all of that. But the principle, the main issue for political parties is ensuring that the means of getting to that market, the road to get to that African market is good enough for the purposes that we wish to achieve, the purpose of either buying or selling. But if we don't have an appropriate road to get to the African market, obviously you cannot buy and you cannot sell. So the point I'm making is that, as far as I can see, I do not see a whole lot of differences in terms of ideologies or even the principles in terms of the end, the objective of most political parties. But the problem always is the means. And then when we're talking of the means, then again, we're not talking of the leader. What manner of guiding principles guide the government under that leader? How does he actually manage the government? What are the principles, the defining contours, when he's in power? So you can see that when we're talking of ideology, it's almost an interaction between ideas, means, and the personality.
All right, thank you so much. Let's come back to Abuja here, and soon the campaigns proper will begin, and Nigerians will troop out to listen to the actors and what they have to say and what their selling points would be based on their party, assuming that they have manifestos which are different. The basic things like people would ask: food, shelter, security. And for now, the biggest issue would be security, of course. And for most Nigerians, all the parties talk about that. So we can say they are agreed on that matter. But what of the individuals who step forward and say they have a way of doing it better?
Yeah. For me, I think with the 2023 election, what we're going to see is personality, not party ideology. Ideally, the party ideology is promises that's supposed to endear electorate to political parties. But here now, because we've agreed that there is no party that is that political, that is that ideologically driven, so you will now see the personality also selling their own programs, which they have taken. Sometimes you will see the disconnect between even the party manifesto, because they have articulated individual strategy, their own plan of what they will do if they win the election, and to endear the electorate to them. So it's not just they are taking wholesale the party, the party manifestos which reflect the policies and programs of the political party. So what the people will look at now is the personality, probably their character. Ideology of party is also about the behavior of that party and the character of that party, and both we have to now. The election is supposed to be, any democratic election, a competition between different party ideologies, because you will see, okay, this party, when they come, they will take but now in Nigeria, and the reality is, we will have to look at the major issues. The major issues will be security, the economy, and then you look at the education sector within that, and jobs, or the youth unemployment.
In this case, then would you say those who strongly suggest that it's time to have independent candidacy might not be wrong?
Well, you see, having independent candidacy will actually not, it will even exacerbate, this problem the more. Because now it will be, free for all.
Oh, well, at least you would look at the character of the person who's putting himself up for leadership.
This is exactly what we are trying to run away from.
For instance,
because when you are talking about character and individuals,
okay,
you are trying to invoke certain moral, qualification.
Could I put this to you, using your party as an example? Would you say at the point the APC won the elections, it was largely due to the character of its candidate at that time?
Yes and no. And why I say yes and no, from 2003 to 2015 and even 2019, Buhari has been able to get almost the same number of votes in the north consistently. But what he had always lacked was the spread. He could not be able to get that, 25% in 2/3 of the country. But in 2015, because of the alliance with ACN, that came in handy. And this, why Buhari has always been a beautiful bride, is because of the massive and consistent support he had always gotten in the north, based on his pedigree and the people's perception of him.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
Exactly what I was asking.
Good. But you see, that one is personal to him. And what I'm trying to say here is that, we were lucky that, he had that pedigree, he had that credential that, people will trust him, will say he's an honest man, he has never been caught, wanting and, stuff like that. But you see, it will be very, very difficult for you to use that as a criteria. We were lucky. We had him, he was that, squeaky clean. Now, it is a moral question, which, many people even people who are religiously inclined, sometimes you find them wanting. You know, there are the people who pontificate about, you know, morality and all that, but we find them wanting because the temptations are out there and they are too many. So that is why it is very dangerous to always rely on, you know, individuality of the person. But if you have certain set of principles, certain set of rules that guide, you know, your conduct, how you do things, then you don't have a problem. Because even when the devil comes and, you know, he has to, you know, operate within that limit, otherwise he's thrown out.
So in that same vein, would you be surprised if the electorate now say we would apply that same principle in reverse, and we would look at candidates across board and question their character, and whether, as you put it, they're squeaky clean or not?
You see, Cyril, I think this nation has come to a certain stage, rather, where whether we like it or not, we have to address certain fundamental issues.
Right.
And that is the national question. It has been nagging. We have been trying to avoid it. And, you know, one way or the other. And it is even better if we address it now in a peaceful manner. We're all civilized people. We all know what is right. We should sit down around the table, agree to disagree until we reach a consensus. Then, you know, where we're heading. Because where we're heading will not all go well for anybody. Because now there are so many groups, you know, that you call separatists, who are asking for, you know, either this nation or that nation and so on and so forth. But still, the issue is not that people want to go away. The issue is that this system, this particular system, is not working for anybody. Because it's a caricature. We have taken, you know, so many things from so many places and we have put them, you know, together. So it becomes a Russian salad. You simply don't know, you know, what is in, you know, and if you don't take care, you eat it, you have constipation. And this is exactly where we are. So, you know, I think it is imperative on, you know, whoever is going to come. It's, you know, it doesn't matter whether, you know, I mean, you know, his morality or whatever. But whoever is going to come must have the political courage, you know, to address this issue. This issue must be addressed once and for all. You know, because in a manner of speaking, our seniors, our elders, you know, they have messed up this country. And, you know, we cannot just sit down and allow them to go. You know, you and I, we have friends, you know, that are from different parts of this country that profess different kinds of religion. You know, when we sit on personal basis, we can be able to understand ourselves. We joke, they come into, you know, I mean, we're all family friends and so. But the moment, you know, the Nigerian issue, you know, is raised, everybody is up in arms and, you know, talking about, because, you know, for example, I mean, what is the, you know, difference between the suffering of an Igbo man in Onitsha and a Hausa man in Sokoto and, you know, a Yoruba man in Ekiti? It's the same. And, you know, this same elite, you know, at the top, you find them, you know, having the same companies, you know, belonging to the same clubs, their children marrying the same, you know, one another, and, you know, they are the best of friends. So you see, who's fooling who? But if we sit down and address this, you know, issue, everybody will get a fair share of what they think they deserve. And, you know, this is going to be, you know, a dialogue that everybody, you know, like, you know, a lot of people are calling for, you know, sovereign national conference, you know, so people are calling for, you know, structure and all that. Look, we should not be afraid to discuss amongst ourselves, because today, whether you like it or not, you know, Nigerians are all one family. And if we don't, you know, tap on that, you know, on our diversity, the virtues of our diversity, you know, it will, you know, these fault lines will simply destroy us.
Right. Okay, Dr. Abayomi, how does this fit into the idea that a country ought to have some form of ideology and say, this is where a country wants to go? And at this point, there are calls for divisions. People want to go different ways, or they have ideas of how the country called Nigeria should run. Would this be as a result of the absence of any form of unifying ideology here, would it be? Which has not been addressed by the political parties.
For my brother that just spoke just now, because he actually captures, I will say, the most important ideology of any nation. And I think his emphasis, and I believe our nation should soberly reflect on his presentation he just made. A nation cannot be made without some level of consensus amongst the people. And if you look at our country, we are a unique nation, extremely unique by the creation of God himself, in the sense that different people with different cultures are permanently put in different locations. Now, if such people intend to form a united nation, it seems to me commonsensical that they should sit around the table, to use my brother's expression, in order to agree on the terms of their relationship. Even in nations where they have common language, common culture, common religion, common everything, like America, in order to form a United States of America, they sat around the table. So if they can sit around the table, why should we not? It will seem to me that the most imperative responsibility, and I do share his position, that our elders have failed us, because my thinking is that immediately the leaders, political leaders, came to power in 1999, that should have been their first and primary preoccupation. How could we allow ourselves to be governed by, for example, a document of governance? I'm talking of the Constitution, foisted on us by, again, let us call it what it is, a treasonable felony system that will kill its own when they rise against it. That same document that lied about itself, we the people haven't. The people who gave us the Constitution realized that this document can only come through a way of consensus agreement. That's why it says we the people haven't solemnly, which is of course a lie. So the greatest ideology, and that is the point he's making, and the point I have always been making, and I'm glad there's an expanding consciousness about this. The greatest ideology for this nation that has great possibility to be great, one of the greatest nations in the world. This nation that has great possibility to lead the Africa, black people all over the world. The greatest ideology for us, in my view, is for us to sit around the table, as he has just said, to agree. Because if we don't do that, you see what is happening. We may just lose control. Look at what is happening to our children. Those ones that are rushing out of the country because they feel that their nation is not worthy of their lives. Then those ones that are here, now every home now is facing a movement of the youths. So the greatest ideology must be to come together around the table and agree on the ideology of government for a great nation like Nigeria.
Thank you very much. At this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, We will open the phone lines, and that means you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. And we would also take one more report on the issues at stake on NTA Tuesday Live. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
Electioneering campaign by political parties and their candidates in Kaduna State is yet to commence in line with guidelines released by the Independent National Electoral Commission. However, there is ongoing strategies among them to reach out to electorates through consultations and some nocturnal meetings. As usual, some entice electorates with juicy promises of providing infrastructure, security, healthcare, and qualitative education.
A very Herculean task, but it must be done. Like we were saying during the Civil War, is a task that must be done. Because ideology is the lifeware of the political party, because it is the basis upon which political party appeals to the general public to win their support. And the basis of ideology is you look at what the society is lacking and you see what you can provide to change the situation for the better. All the political parties in Nigeria had their ideology, their manifesto. NCNC was committed to freedom. Action Group was committed to education. NEPU was a party which was formed to liberate the common man.
All about Labour Party is human capital. We are coming to complement the labor in the states so that we can resource the main resourceful capital to harness potentials that are in Kaduna State.
The PDP is all about welfareism, provision of social services and infrastructure that is in their needs. Nigeria is in their needs.
It is more of a movement, and that is what the NNPP is gravitating to. It's beyond what we call political issue, but a movement. In a movement, people give themselves to it completely.
You can see the massive infrastructure development we have embarked on in the last 3 years, which by the time you have all these critical infrastructures in place, you will attract foreign investors. And by the time foreign investors come in, the industry speak up, people will get employed.
There is enthusiasm in the air as political gladiators are eager to flag off electioneering campaigns ahead of next year's general elections. They are being careful not to violate INEC guidelines.
Every one of us is affected by the circulation of illicit small arms and light weapons in our communities. Our beloved ones, breadwinners, farmlands and livelihoods are lost. Our homes are lost. Even young children are not left out. These weapons cause pains and sufferings, devastating our societies. It is our collective duty as every Nigerian stakeholder, religious or community leaders, traditional rulers or civil societies, and at every level of governance to work with security agencies to stop the proliferation of illicit arms. We must shun the trafficking or possession of illicit arms. We must reject any inducement to help in its transportation. We must report all suspected individuals or groups involved in the smuggling or stockpiling of small arms and light weapons or illicit arms to the nearest security agency for prosecution, as our government is very determined to end this menace. Let us come together and work for safe and secure Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportation. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, this is the segment where you get to join in the conversation in the studio. The numbers will be on your screen. We advise you take advantage of those numbers. And as we say every Tuesday, if you do call in tonight and your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor. Turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. We also like to encourage you to go straight to the point. Don't bother too much about the greetings. Just a mere hello would do. And keep those views short, straight to the point so others can get on the platform and air their views. So welcome to this segment. And it's still about party ideology and governance and where we take it to as 2023 approaches. Oh, governance 2023. Well, just before we took that break, let's talk about sitting down and discussing. But Nigerians have always been discussing. There have been so many discussions, so many talks, so many round tables.
Exactly.
Is there going to be anything different?
Of course, hope enthusiasm is what drives the world. And if you don't keep hope alive, then you might as well just cease to live. And I believe that even at the fact that we're at a critical junction or crossroads, and really it's a very dear situation that we have never faced as a nation, beyond maybe the Civil War. Even then, it was just clear, it was just between, but now the war is all over. And is everywhere. So we need to people expect really good governance. People expect their right to life and protection of property, the welfare of citizens, which is actually the primary responsibility of government. That when you talk of that party ideology, what was clearly said in section 224 of the Constitution, that those party ideology will be based and must conform to the fundamental chapter 2 of the Constitution, fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy.
Right, we have a call on the line already. Ada from Jos, I believe. Yes, Ada calling in from Jos. Hello, Ada, go ahead.
Hello, Cyril and yes, Ada calling from Jos. It's unfortunate our political parties don't have clear-cut ideologies. That's why members find it easy to defect from party A to B and back to party A in a twinkle of an eye. We have politics without principles, a democracy without democrats, which has led to lack of internal party democracy. The worst part is some parties have become entrepreneurial parties, which provide platforms for those who have lost their tickets in their previous parties. They now defect and go and hijack it and start. That is the issue now. The greatest ideology, as far as I'm concerned, which some of your guests have pronounced there, is fiscal federalism, otherwise known as restructuring. Until this country is restructured, we will not have good governance. I don't think the problem of Nigeria is not even the president's tribe, religion, or that is, his educational qualification and what have you. I think the greatest problem is the structure. No matter who you put there, the age is not the problem. Once the structure is faulty, we'll continue like this. So we need a bridge builder as a leader to be able to unite Nigeria. A bridge builder is a person that is able to look at issues objectively without bias or prejudice. The person should be honest and put aside personal, primordial, and parochial interest. In other words, nepotism should be played down for equity, justice, and fair play. God bless you. Let's not give up on this country. It shall be well. In short, for me, if you ask me, we need an obedient and stingy president, stingy in inverted commas, who will cut down the cost of governance. When it starts from the top, everybody will fall in place, and then we will have good governance.
All right, Ada, thank you very much. Well, people who would come out and would face frontally the challenges that society has at the moment, but every politician puts themselves forward on those issues. So again, there has to be a platform, which would be the party.
Yes, Cyril. Of course, since we don't want a chaotic, arrangement, the parties must be the ones or the platforms under which candidates for various positions should be able to espouse. So even with these limitations and shortcomings of the parties not having a clear-cut ideology, I will still borrow a little from Dr. Abayomi's submission that yes, if you have a person of vision, person of foresight, person who is well articulated, who understands the problems, he can make a lot of difference. And that is to say, since this party, proper party structuring and ideology has eluded us, now Nigerians should encourage and look and ask all those who want to govern us, what is their stand, what are they going to do about the national question?
Right.
Because that is the fundamental issue. It is not about building roads, providing electricity, because if people are not living in harmony and if there is no peace, all these things will mean nothing. Because we have seen developed nations in the world, because of lack of peace, all these things they had have been destroyed.
Okay.
And the recent example is Ukraine, as you can see.
Let's get back to the phones now. Abdurrahim calling from Lokoja. Hello. Abdurrahim, are you there?
Hello.
Yes, go right ahead.
This is Abdurrahim from Lokoja. Yes, I'm very, very happy that I'm able to get through today. The problem here is that we are running away from the real issue. The real issue is that we have refused to fashion a way to punish people who are corrupt. It is not about restructuring or whatever thing you call it. Whether you like, design a process from heaven. If you have refused to design a way of punishing people who are corrupt, you cannot repair anything. The situation will remain the same. People are taking 90 billion here. All the investigation done on people who are taking contracts here and there, even elder statesmen among them. Nobody is saying anything. You find a situation where an elder statesman is taking a contract, is being paid fully, and nothing. He has no single cent dropped on the site. So what are we talking about? Why are we running away from that? If we have to discuss, let us discuss on how to punish corrupt people. So whatever system you like, just design. If that content is not there, nothing will happen. I am assuring you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Ibrahim, from Lokoja. Thank you for your thoughts. Dr. Abayomi, well, you heard the last two contributions. What do you make of them?
Well, yes, you have to design something to achieve certain objectives. An architect will design a house in order to ensure that that house is solid. That's the basic issue, and that's the point we're making. That the nation, in order to advance and improve and become great, needs to be properly designed. And it can only be designed by the peoples of Nigeria. I think it's important to understand that this phenomenon, there's nothing strange about it. America started with Articles of Confederacy and Perpetual Union. We then realized that being the same people, same culture, same religion, and that article was providing for that society an imperfect governance, dissension, chaos, cataclysm, and so on and so forth. And he then said, look, we've got to rethink the design. And so they met in 1786. Together, the French philosopher de Tocqueville said 55 of the greatest minds met, and their preoccupation was to create the greatest nation in civilization. So they came about with American federalism. Chile, just in the last few years, was under the burden of a military constitution given to it in 1973 by Pinochet. It said that it was creating a small group oligarch that had everything, whereas the majority of the people had very little, and said that the injustice in iniquity that is aimed at is simply not there. So they wanted a new order. The people came together and they gave to themselves a new order, not a military imposed order. Every nation at a point will take a look at itself and say that the path we are on, is it going to lead to a plateau of hope and joy and peace and good government and happiness for the people? If they come to the point that it's not, and security, if they come to the point that they know, then it makes sense that they take a new look. I think that is what my brother is talking about, and a whole lot of thinking Nigeria is talking about, that there is a need for a new design, a design that will give to this nation and place it in the proper position it should be. That's the design we're talking about.
Back here in Abuja, let's look at it from another angle still. You've held discussions in the past, you've had conferences, and certain things have been learned from those conferences, certain recommendations have been made. You do have a National Assembly in place, and those who oppose the kind of conference which two of our discussants have said, point to the fact that there is a sitting National Assembly, and that would be usurping their duties. What do you say?
I participated in one of these conferences, I think 2005, and I had so much hope that it was the first time for For 6 months, I was fully engaged in the process. I didn't even want to travel outside Nigeria. I didn't take any other job. And I served in the anti-corruption committee, headed them by the late Okuta. So you can imagine it was, and we saw everything, we looked at, and we came up with beautiful report. And so many committees did. We had over 20 committees. In 2014, we did the same, just like my colleague here said, apart from this President Buhari's administration, almost all have had these conferences, yet we've not been able to translate, those principles, those resolutions and recommendations into implementable action and policies that will deepen our democracy and build a sustainable development. And that national question was also the reason and the basis for convoking those. And then the argument around having a National Assembly sitting. But of course, because it was too self-serving, those National Assembly, and because we have the Nigerian factor that is so unique to us. Elsewhere, maybe in a very civilized world, people go to become legislatures at state or federal level because of certain ideology, because they are passionate about certain issues. They may be passionate about labor issues or women's rights, or they are passionate about different agendas that can promote advance in society. We lack it here. All that we've seen, that people make laws that will benefit them personally, or they think themselves first before they think Nigeria. And for some of the commentators, I think we have to, and it's interesting when you look at party manifestos and constitution, they talk about restructuring, they talk about physical federalism, and they all mentioned it. And it's clear there that we must look at that national question. But in actual practice, that's why I said there is a complete disconnect. They don't look at those documents, and it doesn't guide them. And then we also then have other challenges around accountability and holding them accountable to that document.
Which is where we'll go next after this call by Thomas, who's calling in from Aba, if I'm correct? Right. Hello. Thomas from Aba, are you there? All right, we lost that call.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hello, he resurfaces. Yes, go ahead.
My name is Senior Comrade Line.
Oh, okay. This is another. All right.
I am calling from a woman that not in a state.
Okay. Okay, this is another caller. Right, go ahead.
Yes. My input is this. Things are falling apart in Nigeria because the circles are not clear the first honor. And when the circles are not clear the first honor, it is because things are no longer achieved. And things are no longer achieved. Why? Because the paper cannot roll. That is what we are hearing in Nigeria today. I want to talk to our politicians that there is no remedy. There is no tactics. There is no ideology they can put to fix this country. Everything has been done, but this country remains as it is today. So, bringing up referendum and other conferences cannot still solve the problem. But I still want them to do what? Give us a listening ear and have a referendum. Let us try a referendum, and everybody can go his own way, instead of killing ourselves. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Senior Comrade Line too. Remember, not himself.
Thank you. Well, that's another angle to it. But the first part of it actually is what's been raised, that if you've had conferences like this before, why would any new referendum or conference or discussion, or by whatever name, be effective? Would it mean that all those recommendations that came from all those conferences were not good enough, or they did not address the issues? The same Nigerians who sat on those conferences would sit in this one you propose. Why would it be different?
Well, okay, it will be different if right from the selection process of those who will attend the conference, we do not follow this, regular pattern. You understand? Because with due respect to the people who participated, there are a lot of people very knowledgeable and very deep and, in their own areas, in their own rights and so on. But unfortunately, the mixture and the agenda, they are just not good for any good outcome. And what I mean here is that more than 50% of the people who go there, they do not merit to be there. They have been there because somebody wants them to be there, or they want to, have this honor of, having been, part of this, process. So we must design a system not only, for getting people, to the discussion table on this critical matters that affect the survival of this nation, but even in our subsequent elections. Because, when you ask, it's like, what has just happened now with all the political parties. This monetization thing, buying of delegates, the new word in town is, are you a delegate? Right. You understand? All those kind of things. And you see, we joke about this, but these things are very, very serious. And, this system has failed. It has failed because it does not, produce credible people who will even select the, right people to go and do the right things there. So that's point number one. Point number two is that, you must have a clear agenda. You cannot just have a porous, the thing is that, this system is not working for anybody. Nobody wants this system. So the target is that, we don't want the system, we want a new system. All right. So let everybody from all sections of the country come with their own idea, and then we discuss.
Okay. The phones now. Do we still have Patrick from Benin on the line?
Hello, I'm here.
Right. Thanks for staying on. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm watching your program. Yes, you still have me online.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. God bless you. I just watched your program from my TV in my room, and I'm very happy. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
I listened to that. I'm very happy, and that Yoruba man and that Hausa man, and with you together there, the way both of you speak, I really appreciate it, because I never believed that we still have such people that have that unity in this country, Nigeria. The way everything are, those two people, they amaze me. They make me happy. They make me feel good. Okay. So God bless them. God will give them courage to make sure that people will strengthen this Nigeria. There's no way they are going to divide this country. We have to sit down really, as they said, as dialogue and one table, as a brother and sister, and make sure that they structure this country to make sure we have unity and we have peace in this country. Because our children are growing up. They have to make good things. We have fixed up this country. So what they have said, I really appreciate them. God will bless them. God will continue to bless Nigeria, our country. We are going to have a good news. We're going to survive this anarchy that we are facing. Come back to the politicians. Please, if people can have anything to talk to those people and see them to change their mind. Because the way they are ruling us, they are on transit. They are not in this country. They are not from this country. The way they are ruling us. Because please, I beg you to help us to talk to them. If they are really from this country, they should do something right. They should do the right thing that will favor the citizens. My brother, I have a little business here that I'm running in Nigeria. If you see how children are suffering, there's a lot of children in the street that cannot be able to drink even pure water that they buy for 20 naira now. The children are here, they cannot be able to buy bread, they cannot eat. People are suffering. Please, let them see how to handle this country and put this country in the right direction. Please, I beg you people to help us to try and do this for us. God bless you, and God bless Nigeria, and God will let us stay in peace. In Jesus' name. God bless you.
All right. Thank you very much, Patrick from Benin. Let's just quickly return to the last contribution you made. And you said this has not happened because a number of those who took part were not meant to be there. You do have political parties. You belong to one yourself. And you have people, Nigerians from diverse backgrounds, intellectuals, ordinary folks, highly schooled, highly educated people. They're all there. Professionals from all backgrounds. Are you saying with this combination of people in all the parties, they cannot carry out a simple task of, identifying the needs of a people that they seek to govern? Isn't that an indictment? Isn't that saying that the parties have all failed?
No, sir, because we have talked about internal democracies of the parties before, and garbage in, garbage out. So we have to adopt a completely new system, because today, unfortunately, in Nigeria, and I don't know what my colleagues think about this, my other discussions here about this matter that I'm going to raise. It is very ironic that the more educated you are, the more independent minded you are, the more focused you are, and the more, like national in your orientation you are, the more despised you will be. Because, the mentality of the Nigerian elite is that, they want lackeys, they want people who will, kowtow to them and say yes, sir, at every, stage. They don't want people who think independently. So that is why these people you are talking about will never get a chance. And even if they do, it will be a very small number that cannot be able to make any difference. And that is why in serious systems, they have what they call selection and election process whenever they are going to have representation. And, by the time, you have been selected, that means, you go through certain hurdles, certain criteria to be selected. You have to qualify to be selected. And then, when you have an assemblage of people who are qualified, now you select the best among them. And so you can be sure that, whatever they are going to do will produce, a good result. And then the second thing that I was saying is that all these conferences we have had, they are just trying to, tinker with the system. What I am saying is that we have to discard this system completely, because this system has failed us thoroughly, because we don't even know what we are, what system we are in this country. And, for us to make any meaningful progress, because, it's not about, like I said before, giving people water, roads, and so on. Everybody is thinking about human capital development today. And, unless you are able to establish that, you will not be able to make, good progress, in what you are doing. And, the starting point is that, if all the various sections of this country come with their own agenda and then put it on the table for discussion, it is left for people now to be able to narrow down their differences and agree on certain things. And the man who was talking about corruption, that, we should look, it is a system that gives room for this kind of corruption. For example, now if you implement only federal fiscal federalism, there will be no corruption, because everybody now is getting national share of the national cake. Nobody is working for anything, and people are not even paying tax. So you cannot begin to question the officials whatever they do with government money, because you didn't pay tax, you didn't contribute in that direction. But if we apply this strictly and we sit down and agree, you will find out that Lagos State may be able to pay 100,000 as minimum wage, while, for example, maybe Capital can only pay 15,000 or 20. Because everybody now will begin to cut his clothes according to his according to his clothes.
Okay, right. We have Wisdom calling in from Nnewi. Hello. Hello, Wisdom.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Right, good evening. Go ahead.
Yeah, my own contribution in this program is that I want this country to be good, and people that will make this country to be good is our leaders. our leaders, they are not ready to take care of people they are ruling. You know that a good leader is somebody who makes people he rules to be happy. But in this country, Nigeria, we are not getting any good leader effort in this country. The whole masses in this country, poor masses, are suffering. Even to buy food, eat is problem. So my own contribution is we want Nigeria to be one Nigeria, and let the leaders know that the people they are ruling is human beings. If you go out there, you will see so many people, they cannot even buy bread to eat. They cannot even buy food to chop. Hunger everywhere. In this annual winter we are staying, every Monday we are inside a house, indoor, sit at home. You can be sitting at home 2 days, 3 days, there is no food to eat, we manage. But if at all our leaders is doing us very well, I don't think such a thing will happen. So please, you people should to our leaders, let them know how to handle the masses so that this one Nigeria will become one Nigeria, will still be one Nigeria. And Nigeria is a good country. So it's because of the leaders that corrupt Nigeria. That is why they're...
All right, wisdom. Thank you very much. Thanks. Dr. Abayomi, well, it's a recurring thing. Leadership. Well, the parties threw up the leadership, all right, so we believe. So the question would be, what's wrong with the leadership recruitment? Or what kind of leadership recruitment do we have as a country if the political class cannot throw up credible leaders?
It goes to the basic issue of growth of a nation. If a nation grows on values and principles, obviously leaders will emerge. And it is very, very clear in the history of the world, human evolutionary progression has shown us that leaders matter in the affairs of nations. I mean, you go to Singapore, you go to US, you go to Dubai, what makes a difference? And then you come to Nigeria, that a nation that is so endowed, what makes a difference? The difference is because of leadership. And to be able to get appropriate leader, you've got to create an appropriate. It's just like a child is coming from a home. You have one house that is like, for example, all sorts of things happen there. A child starts to smoke, maybe at the age of 8, and nobody is cautioning that child. It brings all sorts of creatures into the house, and so on and so forth. When that child gets out, he's not going to be an angel. You can't expect it. You cannot build something on nothing and expect it to stand. On the other hand, you have another house that is structured, organized, there are values and principles, and the parents are very firm in ensuring that the children, for example, study their book, they go to bed at a particular time, they brush their teeth, they wash their clothes, they make their bed, they ensure that the environment is clean. Naturally, that child is going to grow well. So the same principle that we are talking about is that we must have a design that will project and create appropriate leaders for a nation. Why, for example, you just see the dilemma of our nation. Why is it that Nigerians triumph with such excellency outside this country? I was watching recently the graduation, I think it was it Howard University? Something like about 46 physicians graduated, and out of them about 43 are Nigerians. In another something, 17-year-old, the best graduating student in an American university. And you can go from America to Europe to Asia to everywhere. Nigerians triumph. The fecundity of the mind. Why is our nation what it is? Because of the design. And that is the point we are making. How do you have a nation where the minimum wage is 30,000 naira, and you want to go into an uncertain voyage? For example, to run for Senate, you have to pay 20 million. How long is that citizen going to work in order to be able to make 30 million? Maybe something like about 50 years out of 30,000. So, if you want to have appropriate leader, you must have an appropriate foundation, appropriate home, appropriate environment, appropriate values, appropriate mentors, appropriate people that you can look to. This is the issue. And I want to finally say that the issue of, how do we get about it? Obviously, it's about means and end. We cannot avoid, as other nations have done, using the means we have now. The National Assembly still remains the body that exercises the delegated power of the people. The people voted for them. All they need to do is give to the people of Nigeria a law that enables them to solve this national question, defining the perimeters and the contours. People can participate in the dialogue, how that is done. That's how other nations do it. Chile just finished doing it. So there's nothing strange about it. That's what they need to do. They have the power by the electors given to them to give us a law that enables us to come together to discuss the terms of our relationship. That's all that. When we do that, leaders will arise. Don't they leaders arise in our communities, among our people in ancient times? Don't the leaders arise at the beginning in 1960, between 1960 and a few years, where all the regions were struggling and people were struggling to educate us? Was it not in this nation we had television before France? Was it not in this nation that we were building skyscrapers? Was it not in this nation we were sending judges to other African countries? So, the issue is very simple. We must have an appropriate design in order to be able to raise appropriate leaders for a great nation created by providence.
Sounds to me like the indictment is first the political class, second the elite.
Yeah.
So, if you do have an indictment on the political class and the elite, where will the leaders come from?
Yeah, and it's not just that, but yes, they share part of the problem, but you also look at the framework and legal framework here. Even the Constitution says it's only political parties that can canvass votes, and you can only get elected through political parties. And when you also look at that, I agreed with my colleague discussant here that the issue of the process of that recruitment, selection is very important, because if you get your first 11 and they compete, and if that internal party democracy is really there, but it's very correct that the more educated you are, the more independent minded and with vision, the more you are despised, and you're not likely to be one probably that the godfathers will favor. and those who have the means that control the political enterprise that it has become.
Yeah,
in Nigeria, it's actually mercantile politics. So those who control that and access to power makes it difficult for people to have this proper selection. And actually, you saw it in delegates. When you look at some of the delegates I watched, and the comic relief were the voided vote. So I said someone, a political party nominated in what's supposed to be very competitive process, came to Abuja to have a voided district because they couldn't write properly the names of those that they are voting. So that will tell you, where we are. So I agree that a new order is important. A new Nigeria can be built on solid foundation. That diversity and that unity we are talking about, unity in diversity, it still has not been managed, and we have not had a discussion that we chart the path moving forward. And sometimes some of us were not only afraid of that discussion, but I think ethnicity has so impacted the democracy that we practice negatively that we are just really in a conundrum. And we have to come out of that. And I don't trust actually that National Assembly can lead that process anymore, in terms of even if they are the elected, because some others, we also know the system that threw up some of them. There are good ones, definitely, with all the qualification, very qualified, competent, passionate, but they are a minority, and the opinions might not be taken, and people may say they are not, we want people's vote to count, and we believe that increasingly we are getting there, and if the people's vote and the value of their vote will count, then we can also see the influence on that vote, with people now vote buying becoming open, and with transfers and all kinds of mechanisms. So I don't know, where we're headed, because it looks like when this problem is solved, they devise another way. But then it's back to the basic human security problem, freedom from fear and want, that is driving this entire thing.
Prof, I must ask you this, because listening to Dr. Abayomi, he touched on one point in defining the platforms, appropriate platforms for raising. The analogy he used, a child in one home, and he talked about education. And that brings me to the other side of it. If we cannot find the solutions in politics, what about education? You're an academic yourself.
Yeah, exactly, because you see the way the system is, politics has become a full-time job, and the CV doesn't require them to have had other experiences. You all need to have just school certificate, and then you're qualified. And of course, the way we practice it excludes even those who are supposed to be in the university. And then for you to contest, you have to resign your job, and we have seen where we are. 5 months, we're still on strike. I happen to just be in Pretoria teaching, and I was so depressed throughout my stay recently there, and I said, well, where did we get it wrong? If you look at the facilities, it's just world class. Even America, and anybody from any part of the world can walk into their university system, feel comfortable, get the best of education. And I said, how did we get here that we don't pay and add value for the education system? So in designing, in addressing this problem, I think we have to really think out of the box. We have to make even legislative sitting no longer full time, because we can't even afford it, and they are not even producing, and we're not holding people accountable, including those elected leaders. What is the basic that you're supposed to provide in your state? There will not be street light. I was coming here in FCT, a whole capital city, no CCTV. I worked in the whole world as the UN Special Rapporteur on Trafficking, and every country I go, I remember going to UAE on a mission in 2012, and I go to a simulation room. They will tell me the entire Dubai is wired on the wire, and I'm seeing it. If you're driving, they bring you, and that is. To secure Abuja is very easy. How do we employ new technologies to even secure lives and property in this country? So you find that the leaders at every level, local government to state to federal, they have not been accountable to the people. What are the legitimate expectations of the people? That should be the minimum. Nobody is talking about water. I didn't see it in the manifestos and everything. And there is pure water crisis in the country. People can't even afford, taps are not running, electricity, the energy crisis is there. People can't earn livelihood because they can't rely on anything. You can't take anything for granted. You can't even sleep and close your eyes very well. So we have to, that accountability is the way forward. And if we don't have it, people cannot be held accountable to both their constitution and party manifestos. And we have to make the system open so that others can. I'm even supporting independent candidates. It's just that I know that the problem with Nigeria is that everybody will fail. Everybody will want to run. That's just the problem we have, that everybody will want to run and it become unmanageable. Because we are not a country where people decide that we want power. Almost everybody want power for one thing or the other. And it has become even the surest means to getting rich. So why do you blame them too? It's the survival. It's a survival strategy that it has become. So we need to expand the space, and it has to be people's driven, people's right to participate in the government of their country and be part of, so that government that affect their lives and government obligation, that contract between the government and the people, which goes back to the political party ideology, it needs to be implemented. People need to know what they are taking away from here. You want to endear them to the political parties. Your promises, are you keeping to those promises? At the end of the day, can they look back and say you have delivered on dividend 1, 2, 3, and at all levels? Because when you go to even the government closest to the people, you will find worst case scenario, and that's where you're supposed to have best mind. Even retired pumps and people who are educated, people who are, but then you have people who have never made any 1 million in their life, except for the first time they are at local government sharing money, and they can't account for anything. So we are really in trouble, and we are in deep trouble, we realize. But I don't think the solution is not what we can find, but we must be honest in trying to build that new order. And we have to be determined. And the political elite, no more games. We shouldn't use our differences as a political, resource and convenient. People should know wherever you are. Just like my discourse yesterday, whether you are Igbo in this, but whether you are, you feel the pain wherever. If you can't say insecurity now has spread all over. I don't know where. Even I don't feel too safe in Abuja. I don't feel safe in anywhere. It's the same. So we have to really come together and be determined to say, probably from our experience in Chile, he mentioned, I've been to Chile. If you go there, because of the experience of military rule and Pinochet time and the torture, they have even a museum of human rights. State of the art. They have even a memorial, things that, and if you see their people visit these places, you would think it was just open today. And they want to say, and they bring their young children, never again. Because when you have an experience, you memorize it, never again. We have not been able to say never again. Post-Civil War, we have not been able to say never again military rule. We have not. So we have to, if people just get to a stage that any little thing, if they just say, we are tired. When they go out of Nigeria, yes, they do well because they have the favorable condition to compete. That's basically what people need.
All right. So as we begin to wind down on this program, let me come back to you and put it to the political class again and say, what is the way out? And how can we take all of this and take out the bad and put in the good?
Okay. Actually, the timing is good now. And I'm glad people are very enthusiastic about this PVC, collection of PVC. And my only prayer is that I hope people are not collecting these PVCs as a means of getting money during election. I hope, they mean...
If the experience of delegates is anything to go by.
Exactly. So, but if they are collecting these PVCs so that they can go and exercise their rights to vote and vote out, the bad leaders, and at least bring in, some semblance of, good governance. You understand? That is to say, from 2011, as a matter of fact, I have stopped voting on party basis from 2011. And, yes, at that time I was in PDP, and the National Party headquarters, queried me for openly canvassing that people should vote for individuals who can, good people who can be able to deliver. And I told them that I stand by my position, and if anybody decides to do anything like punish me, I'll take them to court, because it's my fundamental human right to vote for whomever I want, because it's open secret ballot. Even if I go and vote for a non-party member, how would you know? I'm just coming out because it is imperative. Somebody has to, like she said, thinking out of the box, come out and be deviant, for the sake of making these things better. And this is precisely what I will wish and pray and ask Nigerians to do. Forget about the fact that there are 2 major parties or 3 major parties or whatever. Look for good candidates at every level, from any party, from your community up to the top, and then vote for those people, because that is the only option that we have for now. And the second option is that I hope by the time this is done, the new legislature that we are going to have will have the courage that and the political will that Dr. Abayomi was talking about, to create that enabling environment condition whereby the right people will be selected to come and fashion out a new system for us. Right. So that this we don't want to go the Rwanda way. We don't want to go the Yugoslavia way. We don't want to take up arms against one another. Today, Nigeria, I cannot see any society that is so intermingled, than Nigeria, anywhere in the world. Whereby there is no nook or corner you will not find Hausa man, Igbo man, Yoruba man living side by side. I say at least these are the 3 major groups. Right. In the marketplace, everywhere. So, that tells you that we don't hate each other. But the fact of the matter is that, our leaders don't want us to think outside, the box, outside, these fault lines. They want us to continue to think in terms of ethnicity, in terms of religion, and so on. And meanwhile, they are doing well with their lives, with the lives of their children secured, and all that. So this is my, appeal. Please, this drive for voter PVC should be done with the mind to change this system. Okay.
Dr. Abayomi, we've got just about 2 minutes to round up, so your closing comments. That
it is just very clear that Nigerians want a great nation. No, majority of Nigerians don't want the destruction of Nigeria, but the improvement of Nigeria. We can have 1 million people calling for Yoruba nation in New York, but you can also get another 10 million in northern Nigeria, Yorubas in northern Nigeria insisting on Nigeria. In the same manner, you can have 1 million Igbos maybe in Houston calling for iPod, but in Lagos, you can also have 10 million Igbos insisting that they want Nigeria. Generally, what we want is a great nation, because this nation has the potential to be one of the greatest nations in the world. And I completely agree with my brother who just spoke. What is left now, this temporary step that we are taking, that will lead us to a new government, we pray that the next government will have the courage to work with whatever structure that is available in order for to come together, in order to deal with this issue of the national question. Because as of today, how many of our children want to stay in our nation? If you have a child that is running away from your home, then you have to look at the home, not the child. That is the issue that faces our nation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tunji Abayomi, a lawyer, pro-chancellor and chairman of the governing council of Adekunle Ajasin University, Akungba Akoko. Thank you so much. Joined us from Lagos via Zoom. Thank you, Dr. Abayomi. Thank you.
Thank you.
And big thank you to Joy Izilo, Professor of Law at the University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, a former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Trafficking. Prof, it's been a pleasure having you on this program.
Thank you.
And thank you so much to a founding member of the APC and a member of the Board of Trustees of the APC, Nasser Isa Abubakar, former Executive Director of Westex Group PLC. We thank you for your thoughts on this program.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you to you all for being part of this program. Next week we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Continue to stay safe.
Thank you.